Sweet. As far as I'm concerned, we are big shots in JSX. But as you're looking at our code, you're probably wondering about two things. First, can we only return HTML from our component? And second, for those of you who are aware of arrow function syntax from ES6, are probably wondering, well, can we use ES6 syntax instead? Because probably it would be shorter. So why don't we take a look at this in this video? First and foremost, let's create a few more components just so we can see whether we can nest them and return them from this greeting component. And for this, since this is a component, and we know that this would be a functional component where we just need to write a function, why don't we test it out using the arrow function? Now, for those of you who know how to work with arrow functions, basically arrow functions would be anonymous. So we are going to have to come up with a variable. So in my case, the variable is going to be person. Then we need to set up whether we're going to be passing parameters, which in our case we won't. And then we're going to have this fat arrow function with the implicit return. So one of the things that would be different between the arrow function would be, again, that they would be anonymous. So you would assign them to some kind of variable, as well as the return is going to be implicit. So we don't need to use the return statement. Now, there's going to be cases where we will going to be using the return statement. But in general, if it's a one-liner like this, we can just use the actual implicit return. So far, so good. So we have the person, which is going to be our component. So why don't we test this out? Why don't we go over to the greeting? And you know what? Just for the sake of clarity, since I was yapping about semantics in HTML, I'm going to change this. I'm going to say section and section. So I'm going to change this from the div to a section. And here, instead of the heading 1, I'm going to say that I will going to be rendering the person. Now, how do we access the component? Well, exactly the same way how we're working with the render method. We just grab the name of our component and we just return it. Now, the moment I save it, notice what happens. So we are successful. Awesome. So we already starting to see how nice React is working, where we can come up with whatever components we have. And the only thing that's being rendered is the component that's being passed here. So again, you don't need to run around and pass them all into your HTML, meaning pass them here into your JSX. But instead, what you can do is you can create whatever components you would like and then pass them into this one root component, which is being rendered. And then everything is being displayed on the page. So why don't we test this out a little bit more? And let's say that there's going to be a second one. So I'm going to say message, that would be the name. And then let's change this to, I don't know, from heading 1, or I'm sorry, heading 2 to a paragraph. And let's say this is my message. And let's see whether this is going to work as well. So, because maybe at the moment you're thinking, okay, maybe you were just successful with one, you cannot return to. And no, you can return as many as you want. Like I said, you can have the whole website here. So here I'm going to say message, and now I'm going to be having my message. And in general, this is what's going to happen. So we're going to have our JavaScript entry, which in most cases is going to be index.js. Then index.js is going to be rendering, again, some kind of component that's going to be collecting the rest of the components. And in most cases, probably that's going to be app, where we're going to be passing this. Obviously, we haven't covered yet the imports and exports and folder structures and all that, but the general idea would be something like this, where we are creating the components that we can reuse, and then we're structuring our application that there's going to be some kind of component that's going to be rendering either one component, two components, I don't know, 7 components, and so on and so forth. Last thing that I would like to show you in this video is how we can get up and running with React tools. Remember, we installed them, and I said that they will going to be beneficial. So why don't we test it out? Again, we can right-click it, and we can just go to the inspect. Then within the inspect, we're going to be getting our console, the elements, and all that. However, you know what? Maybe let me make this a little bit bigger so you can see better. But then we should be looking for our React tools. As I click on this little arrow, notice I have the Redux and React. We obviously haven't covered Redux, so we're going to be looking for React. And then within the React tools, check this out. So I have my component. So what do I see here? What is the name? I believe the name is greeting. Then when I open even more, I can see that there's going to be person component, and then we're looking for a message. We haven't covered yet the props and the state or anything like that, which will going to show up later on. But for now, at least, we understand that we can see the general structure of our application, which is really, really nice. And eventually, once we're gonna get more sophisticated learning things from the React, then we're gonna progress and we'll see how nice it is to use these React tools.